Am I the a-hole for having a family dinner after my sister's wedding? So my sister Jess, 30 female, got married on Saturday morning. I, 26 female, did not attend for a multitude of reasons, but primarily because I don't care for her fiancé Jay, and we don't get along. So I figured I would skip it to allow for them to have a happy time without me being a Debbie Downer and raining on their parade. Due to the wedding, several family members were in town. Some that I hadn't seen for quite a few years and may not get to see again before they get too old or pass away, as they are older or live out of the country. Since I didn't go to the wedding, I figured that I would host a family dinner later in the evening from the wedding, as most family members are scheduled to leave on Sunday or Monday, and everyone would be split up. The wedding began at 11 a.m, and the dinner was scheduled to begin at 5 p.m. I do live about an hour from the venue, so I knew most people would be on the road by 4, but I figured that seeing as the wedding started at 11, 5 hours would be plenty of time for everyone to visit and mingle with Jess at the actual wedding. At around 4:30, Jess called me completely irate, yelling, swearing, and just generally saying harsh things about how I'd stolen her guests and ruined her day in multiple ways, especially since I didn't invite her and Jay to the dinner. Again, the fiancé that I don't get along with. I didn't beg anyone to come to the dinner, nor did I pressure them, and I left it open to them all about whether or not they wanted to come, which most of them did. I thought this was a fine compromise since it would decrease the tension for everyone involved and make for smoother sailing, but Jess sent me an incredibly nasty message and has blocked me from her Instagram and Facebook. I'm unsure of whether or not she blocked my phone number or if she's just not responding. I didn't think the dinner idea was so terrible, but my boyfriend feels like it was an a-hole move and that I should try and apologize to her. But I need more perspectives. So, am I the a-hole? You absolutely lost me when you just pointed out the wedding began at 11 a.m. and your dinner was scheduled to begin at 5 p.m. I would absolutely tear you apart if I was Jess. What an absolutely selfish reason to say, oh, it's because they're going to be too old or they live out of the country. So, I had to do it the same day as the wedding. No, you did not, you piece of trash. You absolutely are an a-hole for having this dinner on the same day as that wedding, especially 6 hours after the wedding starts, 1 hour drive away from the wedding. I bet a lot of these people wouldn't have left by 4 p.m. if this wedding hadn't been on the same day as your dinner. Wait, reverse it, because you're not that important, okay? 5 hours is not plenty of time for everyone to visit and mingle with Jess at the actual wedding. You are living in fantasy land, you deserve everything you're getting for this, you're the a-hole. Now in the comments, Just Gotta Keep Dugging says, you're the a-hole. That was a dick move to have a dinner the same night as her wedding without running it past her first. Also, who has dinner at 5 p.m. other than 4-year-olds? The early bird poaches the wedding guests. Kalkiki comments, quote, allow for them to have happy time without me being a Debbie Downer and raining on their parade? No, you didn't rain on their parade. You straight up stole it. You couldn't manage to get over yourself and put a smile on for a few hours to be at your sister's wedding, and if that's not bad enough, you straight up stole her guests from the reception, and you don't think you're the a-hole? You are solely mistaken. This is absolutely awful, and you should be ashamed of yourself for ruining your sister's wedding. You're the a-hole. I don't like my sister's husband, for very legitimate reasons, but I still went to their wedding because she's my sister. Refusing to go and then having all our family round for food would have been so rude. I think the difference between you and OP is that you aren't a massive a-hole. You're the a-hole. I'm having a hard time believing that you didn't do this on purpose to spite them. You took a chunk of their big day. Couldn't you at least have waited until the next day for your dinner? She 100% did it on purpose. Even her boyfriend called her out, but she needs more perspectives to apologize. Dick frickin' move. If I was the boyfriend, I would take this as a big red flag and run fast in the opposite direction. The disregard for her sister only speaks volumes about her self-centered attitude. You're the a-hole here. Her wedding isn't some sort of timed event that you get to pull people away from when you decide. They all came for her big day. Keyword there being day. These types of events last longer than the actual wedding. You could have easily asked everyone to come on Sunday for brunch before leaving, or have them come for a Sunday dinner perhaps. You didn't. Instead, you chose to impose on her big day for no real reason. She should be mad at you. And Paper Cardboard Mud says, yes, you're the a-hole. You couldn't just get along with the guy for one day? It's not like you even would have to talk to him all that much. And then at the wedding, you would have gotten to see all the people. Why didn't you at least ask your sister when she thought the wedding would finish? That would really have been the absolute bare minimum in courtesy. Our next post is by user ShamRockingIt, titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my overweight friend that she is fat? So I, 37 female, have a BFF, 34 female, of about 15 plus years. We met shortly after high school, were roommates for a few years, and even though we don't live in the same city anymore, we talk and video chat several times a week. As restrictions have recently been lifted, she came for a visit. I have always been on the thin side and have been accused by others of having an eating disorder in the past. I have never had one. I recently learned I have an overactive thyroid, which may contribute to my ability to not gain or retain much weight. On the other end of the scale, she has always been a bigger girl and has had trouble losing weight and keeping it off for any length of time. She has always commented on my weight throughout the years, like, you're so skinny, you need to put some meat on your bones, dogs like bones, men don't, etc., etc. Never eat a sandwich because while living with me, realized I eat the average amount. 3 meals a day plus snacks. We both have 2 kids similar in age. I lost the baby weight within a few months. 6 years later, she hasn't and is still above her pre-baby weight. I have never commented on her weight because I know it's a sensitive subject for her. As of her last visit, she said things that were very hurtful to me in proximity to my weight. Things like, I look disgusting, my bones stick out, I couldn't imagine being with someone as thin as you, etc. I'm technically underweight if you follow the BMI and height scale. This is where I may be the a-hole because I kind of lost it and started saying a lot of negative comments about her body. It must have been hard to wash all those folds, that maybe more men would be interested in her if she lost a few pounds, and a few other comments that I'm not proud of. She said that I was being cruel and fat-shaming and hasn't spoken to me since. I asked her why it was okay for her to comment on my body repeatedly, but not for me to comment on hers. I have apologized for what I said because I do feel it was cruel, but I stand by my point of if you can't take it, don't dish it out. Edit. I realize I was out of line. She is not a toxic friend. Completely the opposite, body issues aside. She has supported me through everything, helped me leave a bad relationship, took in me and my kids, helped me get on my feet. I don't know if I would even be here to write this without her. All friends have hiccups, and I shouldn't have said what I said, but I do feel like I made a point. I did apologize right away, and after some time, she did too. She didn't realize that it affected me the way it did, and perhaps I was too nonchalant about approaching it in the past. We are back on good footing and have made a point not to bring up each other's weights unless in a positive light. I feel like this isn't too controversial an opinion, but perhaps it will be. Not the a-hole, and she deserved to be called that after mistreating you for so long. I understand you're backing it up with the fact that she's completely the opposite of a toxic friend. She's supported you through everything, she's helped you so much, there are lots of redeeming qualities. That's amazing, and thank God that you have someone like that in your life. But she's been taking her insecurities out on you for at least the last 6 years that you've been friends. But you've been together for at least 15 plus years, as you said at the top of the post. But you also say that she's always commented on your weight throughout the years. She's just normalized her abuse on you for 15 plus years. That's not okay. You've just continued to take it for 15 plus years and of course you're going to say it's not that bad. It's just her insecurities, it doesn't hurt me, I swear to God it doesn't hurt me. But that would hurt me. I would be hurt if I continually got those comments and she never apologized for it until you lashed out. There are no mentions of previous apologies from this woman until this point. Yes, your words were socially unacceptable, but you dished out much less than she dished out on you. Eye for an eye is not the answer, but to do the same to her, you'd have to fat shame her constantly for the next 15 plus years, and that's not a good look either. She may be a good friend in every other aspect, but she is definitely the asshole in this situation. By the sounds of it, you've never broken down to her words before, but the one time you say these things, she falls over. Weak. She is weak, abusive, and manipulative in terms of her insecurities being pushed onto you. It does hurt to say these things, absolutely, but she deserved it. She deserved to have that said to her so she knows how it feels. Not the a-hole OP. Now in the comments, Slydog4100 says, "Everyone sucks here. You went low, and I get why you did, but you should have put an end to the comments way before you fell to her level. And she's the a-hole for projecting her insecurities onto you. She's definitely insecure and jealous of your body, and her comments were also cruel. And that doesn't mean being cruel in return isn't also bad. If you have truly apologized, you have done all you can do. Frankly, I would question whether repairing the relationship is worth it. It cuts both ways. If your friend thinks it's okay to come out of nowhere and blindside you, she needs to expect some pushback. I always say, it's not a war unless we fight back. I would offer an olive branch and leave it at that. It's all about boundaries. Not a Girl 77 says, she's not your friend. No wonder you lost it. Years of nasty comments about your body? It would drive anyone over the edge. Not the a-hole. As an overweight individual who gained weight after my pregnancies and struggled for years to lose weight, I agree. Sometimes you gotta hit hard where it hurts to get people to back off. It's unfortunate, but the friend started it and shouldn't have made nasty comments about a friend of 15 plus years. Thin people have feelings too, and it isn't nice to make such horrible comments about their weight. She maybe could have been more tactful in her approach, but I'd probably react the same, and have, with people who just don't get it. Everyone has a breaking point, and OP reached hers. However, if OP wishes to maintain and preserve this friendship, she's going to have a talk with her friend. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. I am underweight as well and trying to fix it. She needs to understand that people can be body shamed in other ways than fat shaming, and it's just as hurtful. Am I the a-hole for stealing my daughter from my mother? I, 28 female, gave birth to my daughter Alyssa when I was 17. My mum and I always had a difficult relationship, and not long after I gave birth, she kicked me out and I went to live with my aunt while she raised Alyssa. I went to college in another state after, and though I've seen Alyssa some since then, my relationship with my mum prevented me from being there for her. Since I graduated, I've managed to start a pretty successful business, and my fiancé and I are currently in the process of purchasing our first home. I'm ready to be a mum now, and I really want to support my daughter. I had originally contacted my mother and told her that I was ready for Alyssa to come live with me, but she said no. Because of this, I've decided to file for full custody of her. I'm fairly well established financially, and my mother has had some trouble managing her money since Alyssa was born, so my lawyer is pretty confident that I'll get at least primary custody. When I told my mother about it, she was extremely upset and told me I was a complete a-hole for trying to take away her kid, and that I had never wanted to be around Alyssa before. This is just not true. I visited over the years and tried to send my mother support, but she's never wanted me there. I told her that this wouldn't be happening if she hadn't tried to keep Alyssa away from me all these years. I've talked to my aunt and my older sister about this, and they both think that I should let my mother keep Alyssa. I truly think she'll be better off with me. Am I the a-hole? OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the a-hole. I think I might be the a-hole because Alyssa is almost 11 now, and she's lived with my mother all her life. My aunt thinks I should leave her with my mother, and my fiancé is starting to have doubts about whether we should interfere. My 2 cents here is that OP, if everywhere you go, you smell doo-doo, maybe the doo-doo was on your shoes. Maybe you should lift up your shoe, look at it, then look at yourself in the mirror and think, am I the bad guy here? I do feel like surely there are some bits of information that you're keeping out of this post. Because I can understand where you're coming from. It's reasonable to think that, hey, if I had bridged that gap with my daughter, why wouldn't she want to come live with me? I'm in a good financial spot. After all these years, I should have kept contact with my daughter and been buddy-buddy with her so that she would want to move in with me once I was ready to take her in. But that's obviously not the case. You've obviously not even been in contact with your own daughter for 11 years. She doesn't want to be taken away from her mother, which is her grandmother, but actually her mother now since you didn't fulfill that. Your auntie, who looked after you, says it's a bad idea, and even your fiancé is saying it's a bad idea. If all of these people that are very personally connected to the situation are saying that, you should probably listen to them and back off. You're the a-hole. Now in the comments, the best Peter says, "You're the a-hole. This is an 11-year-old kid who's grown up without you and was raised by her parent, your mother. Coming to visit now and again over the years doesn't make you a parent. Your mum is the one who's done all the hard stuff over the years to take care of her, and now you want to rip her child away from her. Giving birth doesn't make someone a mother. It's the long-term commitment of taking care of and raising a child that does that. Your mum is this kid's mother and you're just some lady. If you're concerned about your mum's finances and how this will affect her kid, send her some child support or something and help her get her child what she needs while taking steps to introduce yourself more into her life as a friend. Don't try to rip her away from her parent just because you may be legally able to though." Quote, "My mother has had some trouble managing her money since Alyssa was born." Wow, could that be related to mum being a single parent? I would contribute to a GoFundMe for your mum's lawyer. You are such a raging asshole, intent on stealing a child from the only parent she's ever known. No joke, I really felt like puking when I read that line. Instead of supporting her after 11 years of taking care, raising and parenting the child that OP birthed, she wants to use her mum's financial instability to take her daughter away? What? That's so sick. She's ready to be a parent now. Sarcasm. This is the sentence that made me go bananas. How in the hell is she ready to be a mother when the kid is 11 years old and has a mother? OP, your mum maybe was an a-hole when she made it hard for you to see your daughter, but you had 11 years to take her before now. You didn't, not the a-hole. Also, there is not a single mention in her entire post about what Alyssa wants or how she feels about the whole situation. Is OP planning on just showing up at their house once she's granted custody and being like, "Alright, pack your bags, you are moving away from your school, friends, community, and de facto mother to go live with me and some random man"? I'm sure that'll go swimmingly for her and they'll be doing mummy-daughter spa day in no time. You're the a-hole. Not once did you mention what Alyssa wanted or preferred. I also feel like we aren't getting the full story because why is your mum trying to keep you away? Why did she kick you out? There is so much missing here. No matter what, you need to ask Alyssa what she wants. That's all that matters here. You don't get to just decide that you're ready to be a parent and have a person whose life you haven't been in for over a decade all of a sudden be your child. Hell, she didn't even mention if Alyssa knew that she was her birth mother. Yes, this. My family had the same situation, and the child didn't know until they were 8 or so who their real mother was. Also, probably through Mark Narration's channel or something if he's already read this story out, or just another Reddit YouTuber. Someone that personally knows OP has replied in the comments down here and it's quite juicy. I know this because Repulsive Purchase 6 down below says, he knows OP personally. He's a friend of the mother, I believe. Click on his profile and check out his comments. He found out because OP uses her daughter's real name and a relative saw this story on YouTube. This is insane. Oh, it was EXO's YouTube channel, goddammit. Job Vegetables 4575 says, if you want the real story, read this. You know very well why you lost your daughter. Do I need to remind you when your mother found you baked in the car with your daughter crying in a filthy diaper? Or when you started dating that child predator, and you saw no issue with bringing that man around your daughter? Or the countless times you forgot to pick her up from school because you were so baked out of your mind, you forgot to mention that in your story, and you never ever offered her any money. You only came around when you needed money from her. And that one time she refused to give you money, you broke into the house and stole her mother's watch to pawn for your sugar candy. You broke into her home so many times that she had her locks changed. And did you mention the fact how you threatened her constantly when you didn't get your money for your sugar candy? But your mum, being the saint that she is, never ever went to the police, even when she had proof. But what hit the nail on the head was when your daughter came to your mother and said that your boyfriend, who was not the child's father, was coming into her room at night and standing over her bed. Just standing for hours. You conveniently forgot to mention that. She saved all the proof throughout the years. The fact that you were trying to make yourself the victim is disgusting. She will see you in court, and trust me, with all the proof that she has, you will not get custody. Shame on you. Alright, and our next post is by user 27727JSI, titled, Am I the a-hole for screaming at a bunch of kids trying to steal my dog right before being put to sleep? This has been going on for a while and honestly has been quite stressful and frustrating, so I will share my story here today and hope to get some opinions and insights. I, 28, had a dog that accompanied me for 9 years. She wasn't very old and looks fine from the outside, but she was sick and in constant pain. It took a lot for me to accept that putting her down was the right choice, and tried my best to prepare myself for that day. I told my friends and neighbors about the appointment, the ones I know who care about my dog, and they were welcome to say goodbye to her. Among them is a 10-year-old girl who lives next door. The girl had been begging me to change my mind, to not give up on my dog and not to kill her. I was not in the mood of comforting or explaining things to kids, so I ignored her and just let my partner deal with her. On the day of the appointment itself, I brought my dog out for a bit of sunshine before the actual departure. The girl came again, this time with her friends, and they just took my dog. She was very skinny then, even a kid could take her, and they ran. They didn't get very far, as my partner quickly went after them, took her back and put her in the car. I completely lost my crap. I had been holding back all these times when this girl had been harassing me for killing my dog, and on the actual day she even stressed my dog out by pulling this stunt. I screamed at the kids, calling them quite a number of names until the girl cried and ran away. It has been 2 weeks. I sent my dog for cremation and she came home in a small urn. I still miss her terribly, but have stopped crying every time I think of her. The family next door had been demanding an apology from me to the little girl, saying that I've traumatized her for yelling at her and that she only did that because she loved my dog. I told them she deserved it. I'm not going to apologize to a kid who similarly traumatized my dog during her last moments. I've been called out for it several times because I cannot just avoid my neighbors in general, and they were talking about how much of an a-hole I am. Even if she is a kid, I cannot forgive her, much less apologize. So, am I the a-hole? Edit, just came back from something and did not expect to see so many comments. Thank you for the inputs. I'll be answering some questions many are asking. My dog was very well liked in the neighborhood and among my friends. That's why I wanted to let people who loved her know that she did not have long, so that they can visit us and say goodbye to her while she was still there. I was not aware that euthanasia may be an inappropriate topic for kids. The girl does know that my dog was sick, but could not accept that sometimes animals need to be put down. Her reason was more or less about possible miracles, that there was still hope. I wish, I really did, and that we should just wait and see. I did not explain my dog's condition in detail because firstly, not really in the mood, and secondly, I didn't think she would understand anyway. My partner did most of the talking with her. They're better with kids than I am. As for what exact names I called, I'm ashamed to admit that yes, they were offensive and not exactly appropriate words for kids to learn. Shall not list examples, might be against the rules. Had she not taken it as far as actually kidnapping the dog on the day and potentially hurting it while she was running away with it, I would have more sympathy for her and go against you on this one. But then again, you wouldn't have blown up at her if that had not happened, and I feel like your reaction was appropriate for what had happened. It's unfortunate that you blew up at a bunch of literal kids, and it's unfortunate that you didn't spare thoughts for the girl who loved the dog too and was just doing what she thought was right. I don't believe that the girl is traumatized by your actions. That seems like a cop-out. And I feel like you're in the right for refusing to apologize to her, even after weeks, to a kid not even half your age. That is not immature, she deserved it. I remember my childhood, and more often than not, I had to take the absolute hardest path to learn lessons. If a kid kidnaps a dying dog because they want to save it, you need to punish that kid. It has to be done. Yeah, you're not their parent, and it's not your job to teach that kid and punish that kid. But I swear to God, if a kid not even half my age hurt my own dying pet and kidnapped it while I was trying to euthanize it, while already in a very emotional state myself, I wouldn't be able to contain my emotions. I would probably lash out like OP did too, and I don't blame OP for doing that, and I wouldn't blame myself for doing it. Kid has got to learn one way or another that that's absolutely not socially acceptable and it will not be tolerated. You can't impose your beliefs on strangers like that, especially when it comes to topics like their pets and having to put their pets down. Kid 100% deserved that. Kid should feel ashamed. Kid should be apologizing to you, not the a-hole. Now in the comments, Concord78 says, "It's her parents' job to explain to her, not yours, not the a-hole. They owe you an apology for traumatizing you and your poor dog. I'm sure the girl meant well, but lessons need to be learned." Yes, I would think the girl needs to understand the difference between killing a dog that you don't want and putting down a dog in pain, not the a-hole OP. I'm sorry you had to go through that. To be fair, many adults don't understand it either. They just see we don't put down humans in pain, we give them palliative care. Why can't we just do the same for dogs? I don't doubt the parents think that. And I feel the exact opposite. We put down animals who are suffering. Why can't we do the same for our loved ones and are in unending pain and suffering? This 100%. It's so cruel that we make humans suffer critical illness. On April 1st, I had to put down my cat. He was 12 and he was so much a part of our family. It killed me to do it. The vet told me that this is a kindness we offer to our animals that we don't offer to people. It's so true. Why do people have to go to the very end in immeasurable pain? My grandma had dementia and several strokes and couldn't remember us, couldn't speak, couldn't move. There's no way that's how she would want to spend her last years. And Weeble says, "Not the a-hole. The girl stole your dog, and a sick dog at that, causing it unnecessary stress. The neighbors should be explaining to their kids that if they pull this sort of stuff off, they should expect to be yelled at." Adding to things the parents need to explain how absolutely dangerous what she did was. Anyone who has worked with injured animals or one suffering from chronic pain, they are incredibly more likely to bite, even if they've had no prior history. Snatching and running with this dog could have ended with her getting mauled. And our next post is by user ThrowRAAA466 titled, "Am I the a-hole for kicking my brother's fiancée out of my car on her engagement night?" Now, my brother's engagement dinner was last night. I don't like his fiancée for several reasons. She's mean and brutally honest with her comments about my life. Always tries to belittle me every chance she gets, like belittling my degree and living situation. I'm civil, though I have a temper, and sometimes I can be mean towards those with no respect. So, my wife passed away from breast cancer. We bought a car, and it's the first decent car we got, and my wife and I didn't make a lot of money, so it was a challenge to save up. It was her choice, so I make sure to keep it maintained regularly. My brother's fiancé made comments about it, calling it a piece of junk, and it hurt because it's a part of mine and my wife's past. Now, when the party was over, my cousin left, was the one who got them to the restaurant, and my brother didn't want to take an Uber. He wanted me to give them a ride, and I said okay, but his fiancée stood there saying she wasn't going to ride in that piece of junk on her engagement night. I got really annoyed by this comment, and my mum, who was in the passenger seat, did too. My brother spent 5 minutes convincing her, and she finally got inside the car, but didn't stop with her constant criticisms on how awful and dirty my car was, and continuously calling it a piece of junk. My brother said nothing, so I made eye contact via the rearview mirror and said that if she called my car a piece of junk one more time, she's out. I don't care if I drop her off in the middle of nowhere. Side note for brother's fiancé, that's how you end up on a Mr. Bolin video. Now, my brother's fiancé went quiet for a few minutes, then commented on the necklace that was hanging from the rearview mirror, calling it ugly, asking why I'd hang cheap, ugly stuff to make this piece of junk even uglier. I fudging had it. That necklace belongs to my wife, for Christ's sake. I got mad. I stopped the car and told her to shut the hell up and get the F out. My brother asked if I was serious, while Mum was trying to get me to continue driving. I repeatedly told her to get out, but she didn't, so I got out, walked up to her side and opened the door for her to step out. She started crying, and my brother called me nuts for acting out like that. I told both of them to get out, and they did. I drove off, and Mum didn't stop yelling, saying I can't leave them on the street, they just got engaged, and told me to turn around and pick them up, but I screamed at her to stay the F out of it, or she'll join them. Oh, she told the family what I did, and my dad was pissed, saying that it was disgraceful to do this to my brother and his fiancée, and I should be ashamed of myself for making a scene on their engagement night. He said I need serious help for my anger, and should have just sucked it up till I got home. Mid-argument, I walked out, leaving him talking to himself. I'm sure my brother doesn't want to see me for letting him down on a special night in his life, but his fiancée was being disrespectful. So, was I the a-hole? And edit, she did not know that the necklace belonged to my late wife, so while she shouldn't have commented on it, I could see that she wasn't aware of its sentimental value. And the mod comments, since so many people can't seem to comment without continuing to call the fiancé a bitch, etc., this thread needs to be locked. Sorry, OP. I'm gonna go with a popular opinion on this one and say absolutely not the a-hole. Sure, maybe they awoke a dragon up within you, and from the outside in, with these people having a biased perspective, you might need anger counseling and to control your anger. Maybe they need counseling and therapy on how not to piss you off and disrespect your dead wife's honor. She is well aware that the car has deep meaning to you because you and your wife contributed to it. And while she didn't know about the necklace, you could have easily told her that and she could have backed down. But it shouldn't have got there in the first place. It shouldn't have got to that point where you need to tell her, hey, please don't rag on the necklace. This is actually my dead wife's necklace. It means a lot to me. If she was a decent human being, she wouldn't have said any of that. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. That's never acceptable. I understand why the brother and the mother were being like, we need to stop this, we need to calm down, OP, don't kick her out. But you play with the dragon, you get burnt. And obviously that's what happened to this situation. You don't just disrespect the dead wife's honor like that. And if either your mother or brother had spines, they wouldn't attack you for this. They would understand where you're coming from. But it's apparent they don't have them. So yeah, brother's fiancé is a bitch, and you're not the a-hole. Now in the comments, Crayola in my brain says, not the a-hole. People who are proud of having a brutally honest personality just enjoy being cruel. You had every right to defend your deceased wife's necklace and your belongings. You'd be upset with yourself if you didn't. I'm sorry for your loss. Brutally honest is just code for, I'm an asshole, deal with it. Can't see that marriage lasting long. I came here to say just that. Every self-described brutally honest person I've met is a thin-skinned asshole who can dish out but cannot take it. Same. I once met a guy that was proud of being a brutally honest guy. He dished out the meanest things he could muster, but would cry and have a fit if anyone called him out on his BS. I read something recently that asked, why does it always have to be brutal honesty? Why can't it be kind honesty, compassionate honesty, sensitive honesty? I agree. I don't understand why honesty always has to be so harsh, and why people are so oddly proud of it. As said by another Redditor, brutally honest needs to be reserved for moments that require a brutally honest reply. Someone about to screw their life up? You give them a brutally honest response. Brutal honesty is reserved for emergencies, if someone is being a dick, or if they asked for it. Not the a-hole. The fact that it was their engagement party is not even relevant to this. In no way does that excuse her awful behavior. And OP replies, no, it doesn't excuse her behavior. I get my brother didn't do anything wrong, but he was there and saw how the fight started, and to blame me solely for the fight I think is unfair. My dad said that I needed to get a grip because he knows how I can be sometimes, but if he wants to blame, then he should blame her as well. Your brother did do something wrong though. Did he know your late wife? Probably. Did he like her well enough? Then why would he let anyone, much less a fiancé, crap on her memory? I mean, unless there's bad blood between you and your bro, or he never liked your late wife? Even if he wasn't close to her, if he cares about you, why would he let someone pick at recent wounds? I know you care about your brother, but he failed to defend you or the memory of your wife. I imagine he was aware of whose necklace that was, to his own fiancé. Whether that is because he was afraid of her or didn't want to argue with her, it doesn't change the fact that he let it happen. Sounds like he's getting himself into a bad situation, but you would know better than internet strangers. But not the a-hole. I'd kick them all out if they behaved like this. Have they got cell phones? They can grab an Uber or walk. To clarify, no one defended you when they should have. For people who are supposed to love you, they seem to have completely ignored your feelings and pain in that moment. This is unacceptable. Also, just quick little end note before I get to the outro. That's the end of the post for me. You'll notice I didn't put an introduction in this video, and I'm going to experiment with not putting introductions in some videos just to see how they go. Obviously, I'm not removing introductions entirely. And yes, Trousers and Possum will be back. They're just having a little siesta right now. I'm gonna let them sleep. And yeah, tell me what you think of these videos that don't have introductions. Am I the a-hole for not tipping my waitress friend who won $20,000 from lottery? So my friend works at a restaurant that I visit from time to time. Every time I eat or I'm with friends, she would serve our table. She recently won $20,000 from Powerball. It's all she could talk about since then, and she's ecstatic about it. She even had her picture taken at the lottery center with the giant check. This was around last week. So today I went to eat at the restaurant with another friend. We both decided that since she won $20K, we wouldn't tip. And it's not because, oh, you have too much money already. It's rather that we are broke college students who literally cannot afford to tip well. And we figured that she would understand given her mega win. When she came to pick up the check, we made a lighthearted joke about how she wouldn't need our tips anyway, and she suddenly got annoyed and said, "Guys, what the hell?" She said it's crappy of us not to tip, and we kept reminding her of her $20K win. We asked her if she had urgent bills to pay or anything, and she said no, she's gonna save it. And she still has a problem with us and called us cheap. Like, what is this? Literally $20,000 and you still want a tip? The rest of us didn't win this money, only you did. If I won $20K with my current situation as a server, I wouldn't care about tipping for at least the next few months. She just won it last week. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the a-hole. Servers still rely on tips, and I understand that. It's possible that she still needs the money regardless. So you really shot yourself in the foot here by saying, and it's not because, oh, you have too much money already, and then you and your friends proceed to continuously rag on her for having $20K, and you just repeat it and repeat it and repeat it constantly throughout the post. It's even in the title. If it's not about the money, you would never have mentioned it. If you can't afford to tip when you go out to eat, you guys shouldn't be going out to eat together, full stop. Your American tipping system is flawed and broken in its current state, and you do become an a-hole when you don't tip because that's how their wages get paid. It's an unfortunate circumstance, I understand that. You've literally given me no reason to sympathize with you in this post, so you're the a-hole. Now in the comments, the best Peter says, "You're the a-hole. If you're going to order in a restaurant, leave a tip. Otherwise, stay home." It just sounds like OP was looking for an excuse not to tip, honestly. Massive, you're the a-hole. It also sounds like OP is jealous of her friend winning as well. You're the a-hole. 20k is not, hooray, my financial woes are over forever, money by any stretch of the imagination. Obviously, since she's still on the job, and she's still putting in the effort to make sure you get good service. If you can't afford to tip, don't go to restaurants where that's expected. If I got 20k, I'd be able to pay off a bit of debt, then it would be back to normal. I'd be able to pay off about a quarter of what I owe for college and grad school, and these are people who are acting like she's set for life. So rude. As Tingly Storm pointed out, I particularly love that this college education of theirs that I can't see costing less than 20k once you factor in books and housing and everything else, has them under such financial strain that they couldn't possibly be expected to tip. But her? Nah, she's loaded now. A real friggin' Warren Buffett over here. Still waitressing. At most, it's a head start in life, which is amazing. You're the a-hole. If you can't afford to tip at a restaurant, you can't afford to eat out at a restaurant. Agreed. Even simple crap is beyond some people. OP, you're the a-hole. Now, our next post is by user NoLingonberry5061, titled, Am I the a-hole for calling my boyfriend an insecure little boy after his repeated jokes that I cheated the system to get a career that pays more than his? So Tim and I met in an English literature class for our junior year of college, and we've been together the 10 years since. While he ended up going into IT, I stayed in the liberal arts track and ended up doing non-profit work after college when I realized I didn't actually want to be a school teacher. Just to say, we always assumed he'd out-earn me by a considerable margin, though when he made more, I always insisted we split things evenly to avoid potential resentment down the road. So I've sort of had a non-linear career path, but ended up switching to the corporate world. To make a long story short, my liberal arts degree and times doing non-profit work gave me a lot of skills that enable me to really excel professionally in some more niche areas. I recently started a new job as a consultant, making way more than I'd ever anticipated. When I got the offer, I told Tim that the pay was amazing, but he didn't ask about the actual amount, and I didn't want to be braggy about it, especially since I was fairly sure that it was above his current income. Well, we just put in an application for a new place, and in the process of having to submit our pay stubs, it's become obvious that I have roughly 30% more than he does now. I expected him to think that that was cool, since he's a feminist and has always been super supportive of my career. But instead, he's starting to make increasingly harsh jabs about how I cheated the system to get where I am, that no English lit major makes more than a cybersecurity professional without cheating somehow. His major point is that I got my first job out of nepotism, which set me up to trample more qualified people who didn't have the same advantages. It's true that I got my first post-college job after being referred by a sorority sister, but it was for non-profit work making $22k a year, not exactly at somebody's daddy's firm. He also points out that at my first corporate job, I snagged a big promotion after volunteering to take on starting up the company's diversity, equity, and inclusion program, and I'll admit that were I a white man, it's highly unlikely that I would have been able to be the face of the eventually high-profile diversity program. Tim also notes that I was awarded a small college scholarship for being a promising female writer, when no such scholarship existed for males. But all that said, I still don't feel like I cheated the system, and it makes me angry to listen to him joke about it, especially since I grew up blue-collar and worked full-time while going to school full-time to afford my degree. I reached a breaking point yesterday when he made a crack about how the new and first woman on his team is an obvious diversity hire. I told him that his jokes about women cheating the system to get ahead aren't funny, or guy talk ribbing as he says. They make him sound like an insecure little boy. He told me I was being a naive Karen, and we haven't really talked since yesterday. Did I go too far? I think that since you guys are in a relationship with each other and you trust each other to be at least mostly civil with each other, that your comments about him being an insecure little boy should be able to be taken, the right way by him. This is not you seeing a stranger and immediately attacking them. This is you reciprocating feelings. It's not particularly reciprocating jabs. You're just pointing out that you're letting his insecurity spiral and personally attacking you for something that I guess you've earned and you don't deserve to be attacked by him? Your actions are justified, you worked very hard to get to where you are, his actions are not, this is jealousy and toxicity coming from him, not the a-hole OP. Now in the comments, Reader 01234567 says, not the a-hole. Dump him. He's sexist and toxic towards women. Imagine you have kids with him someday, what the hell? Using people you know to find jobs is 100% normal and is called networking. Cybersecurity is not some top dog job where no one earns more than that field. His attitude towards your major is gross. Getting a promotion because you volunteered and showed initiative on new programs and showed interest in the company is also normal. There are plenty of scholarships out there. Winning a scholarship does not somehow mean that you took advantage. Like holy crap OP, he is so toxic. He's supportive of your career only as long as he is more successful. Do you realize how condescending that is? An actual supportive partner would be thrilled that you got such a great job. He's not just insecure, he's selfish and an absolute a-hole. This OP's not the a-hole, and the boyfriend is likely only a feminist when he's making more money. I'm sorry he's making you doubt your qualifications and worthiness. Strong businesses need people with many different backgrounds. It helps them grow and change and succeed. People like your boyfriend will always find a way to blame you for and be jealous of your success. Not the a-hole, he claims to be a feminist because it's cool now and gets his social bonus points. I'll bet that if you were better than him in something else, like being a faster runner, he would find excuses too, and that you cheated. It's easy to be supportive of someone who isn't a threat. So you don't sound like you cheated the system whatsoever, and you used your skills to get a job that you were qualified for, so with that being said, info. Why are you dating someone who has zero respect for you? And also, if he wants to be good at cybersecurity, then he should be thinking like a hacker and find every way to cheat the system in legal and ethical ways. What's really funny is, I work in the security field myself within IT, and almost none of those guys have college degrees. They've all moved up from IT, taking relevant training and certifications where needed. I wonder if, in his opinion, they cheated the system too. I'm guessing OP's boyfriend believes he got to where he is purely on merit. He's never benefited from a hiring manager's biases, and his success has absolutely nothing to do with any privilege he might have. Isn't that always the case? Someone like this believes they succeeded due to merit, and everyone that doesn't look exactly like them cheated because society doesn't give him the same handouts they give POC and women. Of course, completely ignoring that, being a white straight man is the biggest cheat code of all in our society. People like this I just write off. There isn't even a point in continuing to be friends with them. I'll interact at work, but that's it. And yeah, the system is rigged towards white men. You've succeeded in spite of that. Poor little boyfriend is not a feminist, and he's having his ego challenged. Not the a-hole. Now our next post is by user NewJello2014, titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my dad that it's time to be a big boy and talk to my mum and sister himself? So my sister is getting married this year, and has chosen me and my mum to be with her for wedding stuff. Has not let our stepmother of 16 years in because we both have issues with her, and instead of going to the actual bride, or my mum who they blame, my dad came complaining about it to me, and saying that I need to help him fix this so she's not totally crushed by being left out. I told him I was not going to get in the middle, and it was time to be a big boy and go to the people he actually has an issue with, i.e. my mum and sister. He told me that he was my father and deserved more respect. I pointed out that he was talking to the wrong person, and expecting me to go to bat for someone that I'm not close to either isn't the way to go. I told him he's a grown-ass man, had and raised 2 grown-ass kids, and has been married twice, so he should be able to talk to the people that he has beef with. He takes issue with my being rude, and now I'm wondering if I effed up with how I responded to him. Am I the a-hole? OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the a-hole. I might be a dick for how I spoke to my dad. Might even be a dick for how I said it to him, and maybe the message in itself was decent. No, I don't think you're a dick for how you spoke to him. Even your tone and the way you said it to him, I can't particularly gauge that because I wasn't there in person, but I'm gonna guess that it wasn't particularly friendly, given the tone of the post overall. Not particularly sure what you meant by maybe the message in itself was decent. I think the message you sent him was more than decent. I do think he needs to clean up his act and be a big boy and talk to the mum and sister himself. Better yet, stepmother needs to go to the sister herself and do it. Hello, Mr. Father. Stop being a goddamn flying monkey for this stepmother of 16 years. She has her own eyes, mouth, brain. She can use them, can she not? This seems like a her problem. It doesn't seem like a you problem, Father. You should know to stay out of this one. And at least if you are going to approach this situation, accept the slapdown that OP is giving you. He is a grown-ass man. He has raised 2 grown-ass kids and has been married twice. He has roped himself into this situation, so now, by association, he has beef. Time for him to go sort that beef out himself, and with this stepmother. This is none of OP's business, so I'm giving OP, not the a-hole. Now in the comments, Don't Trust It says, not the a-hole. You're right that he's talking to entirely the wrong person. You pointing this out is not disrespectful. He's just mad that he hasn't been able to get you on side. For a man that talks of respect or lack of, he clearly doesn't practice what he preaches. The bride has said that she does not want stepmom to be a part of her wedding stuff. They should respect her decision. It's incredibly disrespectful of him to go behind her back to ask you to attempt to convince her to change her mind. Stand your ground. It doesn't even sound like stepmom's not invited to the wedding. She's just not invited to the wedding stuff, like the planning, dress shopping, cake tasting, etc., which the bride would usually only want to share with people she's close to. Plus, if she wants her mother there, having a stepmom there is a potential source of tension and drama at stuff where the focus is supposed to be on planning her wedding. Some people are super chill with their ex's new spouse, but stepmom's behavior here doesn't exactly scream well-adjusted. Plus, if she wanted her stepmom there, she would have invited her. Not the a-hole. He's not upset because you were rude, he's upset because you told him no. Exactly. Which he sees as rude because his understanding of respect is obedience. We're going through this at the moment. I've got 2 younger sisters. We all have the same sperm donor. He doesn't receive the title of dad as far as I'm concerned, but middle sister and I have been no contact for over a decade. Little sister is still very close to him. She's getting married next year, and wants me and middle to be maids of honor, but also wants sperm donor to walk her down the aisle. Middle and I have both said we'll be civil, but we're not doing anything family with him. He's now demanding that we meet him for lunch before the wedding, or things will kick off on the day, and he's threatening to withdraw the funding for the wedding. He's telling everyone that it's middle and mine's fault for not obeying our father's wishes. Luckily, all our family hate him as well. He still does not understand why we are no contact with him. Wow. The fact that he's using the only child who cares about his wedding as a bargaining chip to insert himself into the lives of 2 people who want no contact really says everything necessary about the kind of person he is. I'm sorry that you and your other sister are getting stuck in the middle between your sister and a manipulative tool. And Evocative Enigma says, not the a-hole. He shouldn't be trying to drag you into the argument that you don't want to be in. And to be honest, from just this short input of your father's character, it seems like your mum and sister have good reasons to not want to talk to them, if that's the way he treats people in general. Info. Is this a common thing he does to you? Put you in the middle? Did he come at you aggressively? Did you tell him no and he kept pressing, or did you immediately tell him to be a big boy when he came to you with this? He definitely needs to fight his own battles. As you said, he's a grown adult. He shouldn't be coming to you, his daughter, to fix a problem that has very little to do with you. But if you immediately gave a harsh and condescending response unprovoked, it doesn't paint you in the best light either. I can understand if he always does this, or was being persistent or being aggressive with you about it, but if he wasn't, then there was no reason to be condescending with him. And OP replies, "It's not the first time for damn sure. A similar thing came up when my sister gave a spare ticket to our grandpa, who lived with our mum throughout our childhoods, to her graduation instead of our stepmother. He asked me to talk my sister around, asked me why she wasn't getting the last ticket, etc. He keeps going to me, in part because when I was a kid, he could guilt me into stuff that I didn't want, where my sister was always more firm. This time I said no, and I decided that he wasn't going to budge me, which he did try to do." Am I the a-hole for getting upset at my husband for not picking me up from the airport? Background first. I come from a family where you would just always pick up your friends and family from the airport if you could, regardless of the time of day. My husband does not. He also doesn't sleep well if woken up, so we made a compromise that he'll take me/pick me up if it's between the hours of 6 a.m. and 11 p.m. For me, I would always pick him up in general. Anyway, I had a flight, red-eye, that was scheduled to land at 9:35 a.m. He had something that he needed to do online at 10 a.m., so the plan was for him to drive there, get me, and I would drive home while he did his thing on the phone. It would cause no issues to do it on mobile. I usually text him when I land, and he leaves then, since we live pretty close to the airport. Well, my flight ended up being 20 minutes delayed in the air, and when I landed at 9:55, he hadn't left the house and said he could no longer do so because he had to do that thing at 10. I asked why he hadn't come earlier and waited for me in the cell phone lot, and he said that he was waiting for my text. I said that might make sense up until 9:40, as it's about a 15-minute drive to the airport, but then he should have just left. He said he didn't know what had happened to my flight and didn't know my flight information. I pointed out that he knew where I was flying from and my airline, so it would have been easy to check, and he could have also gone into my email to find the info if he forgot that. My computer is right next to his, and my email is always open. He apologized, but said I was making a big deal out of nothing. Anyway, I ended up taking an Uber home and was upset for a few hours but then moved on. I was curious though. Was I being unreasonable, or was he? Thanks. Edit. I was asked to include some additional info about the events leading up to this that I didn't think were relevant. My trip was booked a month ago. When I booked it, I told him I'm coming back this date and you need to pick me up. He said fine, as long as it's within the time limits. I said yes, it's at 9:30 a.m., so he agreed. My husband is self-employed, and the way his scheduling works is he can either 1. Propose his own times, or 2. Say when he's not available, and they will propose times. He usually does number 2 because he doesn't care, and he's used to just saying that he's fine with whatever time. This scheduling happened about a week ago, he forgot about my flight, and confirmed this 10 a.m. time. A couple days later, he asked me when I was getting home. I then told him, and he said, crap, I have this 10 a.m. thing. Once he confirms, it's a pain to reschedule, because he would have to swap time slots with at least 2 other people, so I would never ask him to do that. I suggested the plan I wrote about above, and he said fine. I texted him right before the plane took off to let him know that it was on time, and that was the last communication before I landed. Maybe we should have considered the possibility of the flight being late, but we travel a lot. Before the pandemic anyway. And our flights to our home airport are pretty much always early, if anything. So it wasn't something that crossed our minds. Also, we are definitely both over this whole situation. I was honestly just curious who was being unreasonable. I think that you were getting mad over a small inconvenience here. Yes, he could have come and picked you up, and perhaps he should have done it, but really, it's not the end of the world, and I think you made a bigger deal of it than it is. Delays happen all the time with air travel, and just because it doesn't happen often to you, I'd say cut him some slack for this one. He couldn't have known there was a 20-minute delay. It could have been an hour of delay. Imagine if he'd been sitting in that parking lot for an hour waiting for you with no reply from you, and then he went home and you got mad at him for not being there. Delays happen, and I think you just have to accept that. This is a one-off occurrence, and I'm sure things are going to be better in the future, so I have to say you're the a-hole for this one. Now in the comments, Webby Vanderquack says, "You're the a-hole. In general, I agree that it's nice to pick up your partner from the airport, but in this case, your flight was late and you knew that he had a thing at 10. I think you need to let it go this time. And the airport is only a 15-minute drive from their house, just get a cab, mate. I've walked to airports that were farther than that. A 15-minute drive is nothing. Lol, you've walked 10 miles to go to an airport? With your luggage and the famously pedestrian-friendly highways that lead to airports. Snufflebear78 says, "You're reading too much into this, as if not picking you up and not magically knowing what you would have wanted him to do means he doesn't love you. You knew he had a thing at 10 a.m. This was not a surprise, and he was doing the exact thing he said that he would be doing, which was waiting for your text. You were getting mad because of something you think he should have done, i.e. what you would have done, even though this was not the agreement. Save your anger for when he doesn't do something that he said he would, a broken promise, instead of the opposite. Choose your battles, let it go, or you're the a-hole." And BlueStocking220 says, "You're the a-hole, but softly. Personally, I think you were being selfish when you knew he had something he had to do at 10 a.m. and your flight will land at the earliest at 9:30, but you still decided that he should pick you up anyway. Even with the compromises, it made his morning more complicated than it needed to be. You're wanting him to be thoughtful toward you, but you're not being very thoughtful toward him. That's not to say he shouldn't pick you up when he is available, but in this case, you kind of set yourself up for disappointment. There are so many unforeseen delays with air travel, this plan with a 20-minute window was probably not going to work out. But I don't necessarily think you're just being unreasonable. There could be something else that made this feel bigger for you. You may want to reflect on why the airport pickup is so significant for you. Is it just a romantic movie image that's stuck, which case you should work on it? Or is this incident a symptom of a larger pattern when you feel like your partner never takes initiative to be thoughtful towards you? Not the a-hole. I honestly can't figure out all of these "you're the a-hole" comments. I travel a decent amount for work, and I sometimes have delays or weird arrivals. My partner picks me up if we agreed on that. Any in-air delays are usually plus or minus 30 minutes. If I'm early, I wait. If I'm late, he waits. He knows how to track the flight and has the ability to adjust accordingly. Was it a bit of a conflict? Sure. But the husband made that conflict, not OP. He scheduled his meeting after agreeing to pick them up and didn't feel it was worth the inconvenience to adjust it, so they agreed on a solution. That's the crux of the issue. His boundaries revolve around his inconvenience, and sitting in a cell phone waiting lot, which the majority of airports have, is a frickin' mild inconvenience. Especially for a partner. Could OP have taken Uber? Sure. But they agreed on the pickup, and it isn't an a-hole thing to expect a little more consideration than him just not showing up because of 20 minutes. It doesn't sound like he even let them know with a text that he couldn't make it. OP was on a plane. What was his excuse for zero communication? Everyone is going on about how OP changed the agreement, but he's already done that to them multiple times. I'd try to talk with your husband about why this bothered you, because I think it's less about the not being picked up, and more about not feeling like you're a priority. Finally, who just ditches someone they planned on getting from the airport because it was 20 minutes different than planned? Why agree in the first place if it's only if nothing goes wrong? Spoiler alert, planes never land exactly on time. I always check flight status. They make it so easy these days. And the worst part is the no communication from him. So disrespectful. I used to live in Houston. It'd be over an hour to get a cab or an Uber most days with ridiculous surcharges. After a long trip, expecting to see your spouse and then getting ditched like that sucks. Not the a-hole. So yeah, I feel like a lot of people will agree with that one specifically. I'd love to know what you guys think down below in the comments. It's probably a bit spicy. Our next post is by user Theo Winterway, titled, "Am I the a-hole for making our son move out if he's not in school?" So we've told our kids they can live with us for free as long as they are in school. If they aren't in school, they need to move out. Our youngest is the only one left at home, and he recently revealed to us that he dropped his classes last semester and doesn't want to go back. We asked about his plans, and he said that he has no idea what he wants to do, so he's just going to work full-time at the restaurant he's currently working at. We said we support that decision, but if he's not going to be in school, he'll need to find a place of his own. He then backtracked and said he plans to go back in a semester or two, he just wants a break. Now, since it's been a hard year, and he says he has plans to go back, we said we'd give him until 2022. If he's not in school by then, he needs to move out. He's now mad at us because his plan was to use this time to make a lot of money and focus on himself. But now he'll be stressed out the entire time trying to figure out a new living situation. Before I get to judgment, I'd like some more information. So American Girl comments, quote, "We've told our kids they can live with us for free as long as they're in school. If they aren't in school, they need to move out." Info. Since he is being responsible and is working full-time towards a goal, why not include option 3? He can stay at home but pay a reasonable rent to you. I would only kick him out if he was just sitting around the house and not doing anything productive. Why punish a good kid who's doing good things? Surely you don't want him wasting time and money in college if he's not sure what he wants to study. And OP replies, "Honestly, we'd just like to live on our own at some point. We will put those desires aside for education because it's important to us, but it's also important to us that our kids get out there and be independent at some point. It's not so easy living with your adult kid. You had rules for them 3 years ago that don't apply now that they're 18 plus. Different ideas of how you want things in your house, but you have to find balance between roommate, landlord, and parent. I don't want him to waste money on college, but if he's working full-time, I think he should be capable of finding somewhere else to live in the meantime. If he wants to go back to school later, we will pay for it." Oh god, oh my god, this is a hard one to put into words for myself. Assuming this is America, it sounds like it is America, I'm gonna go no a-holes here for this one, but I disagree with this parent's judgment. I feel like in this day and age, making them live on their own when they don't have to, and having to dedicate all that time and money into paying living expenses off when you can give them a foot in the door by providing for them at home, really puts that son at a disadvantage. Initially reading through that post, I was like, that's plenty of time. He has until 2022. That's 7 months, man. You have 7 months to work and figure your life out and have a game plan going, but now it's almost 6 months from now. And we've all been young at some point, and being young in this economy absolutely sucks. It's not easy to sit down and focus on what his plan is going to be, what career he's going to, get into, when he is going to be stressed out that entire time. I genuinely think giving him this ultimatum, yes, it's going to help him make a step towards independence. But ultimately, I don't think it's really helping their kid out. I know you can't be dependent with your parents forever, and I understand they're doing their job as a parent to make their kid a strong and independent individual. But I also understand times have changed since they were a kid and since their parents were the same age. It just seems impossible these days to move out by yourself at 18 to 20 and keep on top of things while still saving money. I would like OP to sit and think on this issue, but I'm going to have to go no a-holes here because technically the rules are fair, society just sucks. Now, in the comments, in reply to OP's comment that we just read, Usual Archer 916 says, "I hear you, but as an experienced grandmother, he's not making enough money to move out and have a good life. It's not like things were when we were young. My suggestion, let him stay home, pay some rent, save it for him later if you can afford it and if you like, but have the condition be he gets some career counseling and find out what kind of career it is that he's suited for. There was a book called What Color is My Parachute that might be helpful. As long as he's working towards a goal, I would give him a couple of years. P.S. I had to kick an adult child out of the nest. It was necessary and she's thriving now, but I think for your son, he just needs some help figuring things out. And, quote, I think he should be capable of finding somewhere to live in the meantime. You think or you know? Do you actually know how much he makes? Have you looked into what rent is like in your area? It's increasingly the case that people even working full-time can barely afford to live, as wages stagnate while rent and living expenses increase. Sure, you want him to become independent, but does that mean shoving him into the deep end of a pool that doesn't even contain water? There's a difference between making your kid move out and helping your kid move out. Kicking him out when he's working at a restaurant is just going to lead to him working long hours at a dead-end job just trying to get by. If you want what's best for your son, that might be counterproductive. At the same time, though, you definitely shouldn't make it easy for him to just exist and linger in the meantime. And I'll be honest, most of the time I would say you're not the a-hole. This is a reasonable stipulation, and you're giving him a grace period. It's perhaps harsher than I would do, but that's your right. But, well, the current state of the world is not most of the time level right now, right? I know it's not reasonable to expect you to endlessly suspend your rules, but I think there is a lot of room here for him to ask for a reasonable third option, and you to present a reasonable third option. It's a pretty fudging overwhelming time, and has been for the past year. He has a really good reason to take a gap year in that. It could be something as simple as him finding it extremely hard to keep up with online learning, and him not wanting to set himself up for failure. So I guess I'm arriving at no a-holes here, but it's one where I think you are perhaps not an a-hole, but also, perhaps, well, not being the best parents to your son that you could be. You are not an a-hole for this option, as you clearly laid out the rules. But I do think you're going to perhaps damage your relationship with your son, and I don't blame him for being upset. I would suggest giving him a third option: school, training, or therapy. This way you can give him the best possible breather. You can set him up for true success. You can show him compassion and empathy, and in a way that shows him, even if we disagree, Mum and Dad are willing to talk about what is good for me, and will come up with creative ways to support me when I need it. Maybe you could also talk over some other stipulations, like how he can pay his rent in terms of doing chores or cooking for the family some nights. He will still be building valuable life experiences as he gets a breather from college. After all, few people are served wrong by knowing how to do more in-depth cleaning and getting practice in cooking. He can take his time, get his head on right, and then go to succeed in college instead of struggling his way through. Alright, and I'm just going to move on now to our next post by user Penny Pastors, titled, "Am I the a-hole for not removing my shower curtain when my mother-in-law comes to visit?" Now, my new husband and I just moved into a new home. We both have similar interests, and we're really excited to decorate the cutest little goth college of our dreams. My husband isn't really the interior design type, so he told me multiple times he was happy with whatever I choose. This is important later. My husband's mother, my mother-in-law, is super religious. Apparently, my husband is not, and I am eclectic in my beliefs. Mostly Satanism, and I actively practice witchcraft, etc. Even though he isn't religious himself, he goes out of his way to, I guess, respect his mother's beliefs. He doesn't get certain tattoos even if he likes it. He won't wear certain things or discuss things that could be offensive to her beliefs, and I think this is idiotic, but it's his business, not mine. The problem started when it started to become my business. 1. I have an altar of my stuff with religious symbols and animal bones. Husband mentions if his parents come over, I'll have to put it somewhere else. I kinda blew this off. 2. I wanted to give our unborn child a middle name that also happens to be a middle name of a mythical creature. Hubby likes the name, but says his mum will look it up. I don't care because, well, it's not her kid. 3. The shower curtain. Mother-in-law tells us she's coming to visit via text while we're laying in bed. I watch him reply and then go to Amazon and say, "Okay, I'm getting you a new shower curtain." I reply with, "But my shower curtain's fine." It's the head of Baphomet, by the way. Nothing bloody, nothing stupid, it's just a black and white line art. Then he goes on about how his mum will be offended by it and how we should get a new one anyway. It's immature, it's this, it's that. I tell him that I will not take down my home decor for visitors because they're guests, and I live here, and pay bills. He brings up how his parents gifted us some money towards the house, and we should respect them. I also feel like he gaslighted me by saying, it's my house, I should have a say on the decorations. But he originally said that I could decorate and has battled me on nothing until now. This conversation went on for a while, and I simply just left the house to blow off steam. It was one of those this is going nowhere kinds of arguments. So I vented to a friend who said that it's just a shower curtain and I should respect his mum, and I'm being stubborn, but I really don't think I'm wrong. This is my religion. It's what I believe in. I wouldn't go to his mother's house and ask her to remove her crosses and Bibles. I think there's respect, but this crosses the line into insanity to me. I don't want to help my husband hide his personality from his mum. I feel like he's pretending to be someone he's not, and that's unhealthy, and I won't be a part of that. It's bigger than the shower curtain. My parents are religious old school people. They know what I am and they don't care, because I'm their kid with my own life. So why can't my husband just stand up to his damn mum? So, am I the a-hole? OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the a-hole. I feel like I might be the a-hole because I got into a fight with my husband about a shower curtain, and maybe there's some weird respect thing that I'm missing and not understanding. Man, I really don't want to say the wrong thing here. I'm just going to say you're the a-hole. I just have a gut feeling that you're in the wrong for this one, OP. I can't particularly explain it, it's just a hunch. Now with my cop-out out of the way, in the comments, Greek American Dom says, "Not the a-hole. It's time for your husband to let his parents know exactly who he is. He cannot let them continue to dictate his life. Until he can stand up to them and be 100% himself and respect you for who you are in front of them, do not have kids with this man." It's a bit too late for that one. Sit him down and explain to him that he isn't showing respect to his parents. He is kowtowing to them. Instead, he is disrespecting himself, and even worse, his wife. Not the a-hole. Your mother-in-law can flaunt her religion, but you can't? How does she not know that you're into witchcraft? And OP replies, "I'm not sure if she knows or not. I don't hide it at all. Social media, what I wear, my decor. So unless he's told her otherwise, she at least should know that I'm not a Christian. She's never asked me or anything." I don't know if this advice will work for you, but my super religious mother-in-law found my altar, and she hasn't tried to exorcise me or anything. She was more curious than anything, though it might have to do with the fact that she's fairly young and somewhat open-minded, despite being religious. "Thank you," OP replies. "My altar is in the attic in a private place. Maybe one day her and I can discuss it." Then why was husband even concerned about you hiding it from mother-in-law? Does she plan to inspect the attic and crawl space as well? Goodness. But this is kinda difficult. Pushing too hard might just put him on the defensive. We're talking a complete 180 in his attitude towards his parents and entire upbringing. I also agree that you should be whoever you want and decorate your house as you please, and that husband should be standing up to his parents. Not the a-hole, by the way. And OP responds, "I don't know why I didn't open with the altar thing because he asked me. I told him no, and it was stupid. Then he moved to the shower curtain." June Totenberg says, "You're the a-hole. It's your husband's home too. He gets to give input about the shower curtain, and people have lots of reasons for choosing shower curtains. Mine is white cotton because that's what Target was selling when I needed one. Yours is related to your religious beliefs, and he wants to put one up for a few days to help his relationship with his mom. Those are all fine reasons to choose a shower curtain. If he were a boyfriend who didn't live with you, I think you could say no. Or if it was more complicated to change, like painting a whole wall. But it's a shower curtain. If you take your time, it will take 5 minutes to change and change back. Let your significant other have this one. You're the a-hole. Look, you're married and sharing your home, so you don't get to completely dismiss his concerns because you think your opinion matters more than his. Learn to compromise or you'll have a very short marriage. Small, you're the a-hole. Your husband sounds like a conflict-averse person who wants people he loves to be happy and comfortable. You yourself probably benefit from that aspect of his personality. He was happy to have you decorate the house however you liked. I think switching out a shower curtain is a small thing to do for the person you're meant to love the most in the world. While it has religious imagery, it doesn't sound like it's actually important to the practice of your beliefs. The altar is a completely different issue, as it actually relates to your religious practices and not just your aesthetics. You're the a-hole. But it's not because of the shower curtain, or altar, or any of that stuff. It's because you married your husband, who it sounds like is a very non-confrontational person. Lets you decorate however you want, tattoos, etc. And I would bet money that you knew this when you married him. It doesn't sound like he respects his mother's beliefs. It does sound like he actively avoids creating any kind of confrontation with her. Likely he has spent his life being judged and yelled at by her, and full well realizes that you, who has no problem with confrontation, will not be the one his mother takes out her unhappiness on. Now, this may well change in the future. With your love and compassion and support, he may very well get to a place where he's comfortable standing up to his mother, but does that really have to be today? If he's willing to swap out the things that he knows will offend his mother, whether she's truly offended or just likes to complain is a whole other issue, and then swap them back when she leaves, where's the harm? The only thing you have to lose today is the joy that you would get from putting your mother-in-law in her place. A small victory at best, that is likely to cause more problems with your husband. He could even internalize it as you behaving like his mother. But if you can be okay with the temporary changes, then your husband knows that you've got his back. You strengthen the bond of your marriage, and you start moving him towards standing up for himself, and for you. And, as an added bonus, being extra nice to your mother-in-law now will lower her guard for future confrontations. Am I the a-hole for refusing a gift card? I just started a job in a health facility, and there is a patient who reacts negatively to anyone who doesn't wear solid color shoes. I wasn't told this when I was hired, so for the first week I wore my regular work shoes that have white soles and a black top, and the resident had a meltdown, and that is when I was told. My manager asked me to wear normal shoes, and I asked if I'd get reimbursed since I only have the one pair of work shoes. She said no. The facility doesn't pay for uniforms. So I kept wearing the work shoes that I have. Yesterday, my manager gave me a gift card, and it turns out she'd been asking for donations for new shoes for me. I told her I didn't want the gift card, and was offended that she thought that I wanted charity. My other co-workers are calling me ungrateful, and giving me the cold shoulder today. Am I the a-hole for refusing what is essentially an insult to my life? I'm not poor, I just asked a question. Edit. For some info, someone asked me to include this. Now, after the patient's meltdown, I put booties on. So the patient's reaction is not the issue for whether I'm the a-hole or not. My manager gave me the card in front of everyone and said, "So you can afford some shoes now." And I told her that I did not need charity, and that wasn't why I asked about reimbursement. I asked her to send her request for uniform code in writing, so if I have to get new shoes, I can deduct it from my taxes. She would have known this if she had asked me, instead of going around asking people for handouts on my behalf. I did not accept the gift card and went back to my duties. Edit 2, I want to make it clear that the original conversation about reimbursement wasn't an official request, and my manager making the shoe request did not do it in a way that said that it was a requirement. After the meltdown, and after everyone took a moment for a breather, my manager cornered me at the vending machines and said that I should wear normal shoes with no pattern. When she said no on the reimbursement, I pointed out that our scrubs are provided for the facility, and she said it's not done for things an employee can keep. By then, I had already put the booties on to not trigger the patient. The next time it came up was when she gave me the card in front of everyone. Look, if I was you, I also wouldn't accept the gift card, and you weren't actually violating any dress codes there. Shoes are a stupid hill to die on, and that's why you shouldn't have to buy new ones. This shouldn't be crowdfunded by everyone at your workplace to get you new shoes. This manager has something wrong with them if they've taken that upon themselves. They singled you out after the incident to reprimand you and tell you, you need to put these booties on, you need to get shoes. And then you did the appropriate thing and said, okay, I will get shoes. Please reimburse me for it as is company policy. And they said, what are you, poor? What are you, frickin' got no money? God, you can't buy a pair of shoes? What do you, suck? No, It's called being financially literate. Save and spend only on what you have to spend. This is a business expense. It should come at the cost of the workplace who is enforcing it. OP already provided their own shoes. That wasn't obviously in line with the healthcare facility. The business has to make up for that. I don't know what the hell this manager is trying to avoid by pulling what they've pulled here, but all it's done is embarrass them and embarrass OP. To have the manager lie to everyone in my workplace about me being poor and being like, we need to buy them shoes, and then to have me reject that with this narrative going on that I'm poor, really would embarrass me. I cringe to my core thinking about being in this situation. I empathize with OP. They put the resident first. They did put the booties on. The manager has seemingly done everything but the right thing in this instance, and it honestly feels like bullying, so not the a-hole OP. Now in the comments, Love Fashion says, I'm gonna say not the a-hole. I'm going to assume that this is a facility that is home to multiple patients. It's unreasonable to have one patient dictate the footwear of all the employees. What happens if another resident can't handle the color green? Will all the workers be required to buy new scrubs with their own money in the resident-approved color? Or what about if another resident won't cooperate for a person if they have hair that they don't like? I've worked in enough facilities to know that this does happen, and unfortunately, you have to make the best of it so that you can serve others. Perhaps this is an isolated case and the staff is extending a kindness to go along with its residents' preference. It's commendable that the staff goes this extra mile, but come on. Comfortable shoes are expensive. It's really not fair to make an employee purchase a brand new pair of expensive shoes when the shoes she already owns are perfectly good. I think the manager is the jerk for presenting this gift card the way they did. It's not kind to assume or point out someone's inability to afford something. A good manager would have requested OP wear booties when she's around the resident and express hope that when she does replace her shoes, that she purchases a specific color. The manager could have found some money in the budget, purchased a gift card, and privately given it to OP with a request that they join the efforts to appease this poor resident. Or they could have collected money and presented the card to OP positively. Thanks for being part of the team. We're begging you to get on board with the shoes so we can all work easier. Here's a gift card to contribute towards a new pair so you can be one of us. To me, it sounds like this manager is resentful, and when OP reasonably asked if there was compensation for this request, the manager just wanted OP to purchase the damn shoes like they did and shut up about it. Not fair. Yep. This exactly. The whole thing about the shoes is at best informal, i.e. it isn't in the official dress code, no one even thought to warn OP in advance, and at worst illegal, if local legislation says any required work attire must be provided by employer. And manager had so far browbeaten, cajoled, or convinced her staff to go along, and is pissed that OP wouldn't be a team player, or go the extra mile, or however she justified it in her head. Devlin94 says, you're the a-hole. The patient is a resident, which means you are in their home. When you are in your own space, you get to wear what you want. Change your shoes. I reread what OP wrote. They have booties. Medical coverings that completely hide the shoes and make the point of having different colored shoes moot. It's ridiculous for the supervisor to ask OP to get new shoes if they could do this the whole time to avoid it. I'm curious why OP didn't touch more on this part. That show cover is irrelevant, but they seem more interested in whether they were rude when given a gift card. The gift card thing definitely comes off as passive-aggressive in my opinion, so I don't blame them for turning it down at all. And Webby Vanderquack says, you're the a-hole. Your co-workers did something very kind to avoid a problem that all of them will have to deal with. It's a generous and practical solution to a problem. You came across as ungrateful. Am I the a-hole for refusing what is essentially an insult to my life? The kindness of your colleagues is not an insult to your life. You sound very insecure. You're the a-hole. You were asked to wear different shoes, and because work didn't cover the cost, you chose not to wear different shoes. I'm sure your co-workers understand your stance, and also don't want the residents to continue to melt down because of your shoes. They all pitched in to make their lives easier with the residents, and you turned it down out of principle. Would you feel different if the patient didn't like long hair and OP was given a gift card to a salon? Patients are not allowed to dictate what the caregivers at the facility wear, end of discussion. If the other staff members are indulging that, that's their problem. Alright, that's a bit spicy, so our next post is by user Adoranina, titled, "Am I the a-hole for making my sister leave my wedding reception after her son acted up during my ceremony? I got married this past Saturday. It was a very small affair with less than 70 people in attendance. I opted for a child-free wedding due to both costs and convenience. I like kids, just not at my wedding. Most people were fine with the child-free aspect. The wedding was announced a year in advance, so most people could find accommodations. The problem is my sister, who was one of 4 bridesmaids. She has 2 boys, one is 2 and the other is 5. Thursday, she drops that her babysitter fell through, and she asked for them to be allowed at the wedding. I felt pressured, but she begged for them to come. I told her as long as they behaved and her husband kept an eye on them. She was late getting to the venue because the boys were fussy getting ready, so she's only in a handful of the getting ready pics. Fine, okay. Then the ceremony itself happened, and my nephew, the younger one, began to act up during the vows. My husband and I wrote our own, and about halfway through mine, he begins to cry and fuss. My brother-in-law grabbed him and very awkwardly made his way out, with my older nephew behind telling his brother to shush. I had to restart my vows twice due to the disruption, and I was already so nervous. The venue was outdoors as well, so we could hear my nephew fussing for a while until my brother-in-law got them a good distance away. I didn't see this at the time, but according to the best man, my sister was dramatically shooing her husband out. After the ceremony itself, my sister vanished for a while, so we were held up with the wedding party photos again. After the pictures, my sister didn't even say anything. No apology, nada. After the first dances, she finally came up and was like, "Haha, sorry about nephew, it was nap time. He's settled now." It was such a non-apology, and I was so upset. I told her I didn't like how dismissive she was of my wedding and how I broke down my rule to accommodate to her family, and she didn't seem to care. She said she was sorry again, but I was blowing things out of proportion and how it wasn't that big of a disruption as I was making it out to be. I was just boiling at this point and asked her to please go. I didn't want her there anymore. She and our mum were upset, and she was acting like a victim. She and I still haven't talked. I've had a lot of people, mostly friends, say that I was in the right, but my family seems to think I'm a bridezilla because the disruption had already happened, and I was just punishing them. I'm not angry at my nephew. I'm angry at myself for bending on my child-free rules, and my sister for everything, especially her half-assed apology. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the a-hole. I made my sister leave a celebration after her son was rowdy. The damage was already done, and I was being emotional and reactive. I think it's fair that you were emotional and reactive in this instance. Maybe you took it a little bit too far and you went off at her there, and I can understand people would say it's too little too late. You shouldn't be abusing your family member after the fact. But what really gets me in all of this is the sister's ineptitude throughout all of this. As you'll come to learn, there were actually 2 babies allowed in the bridal suite, as well as these other 2 kids allowed at the wedding itself. So yeah, maybe you can give some flack to OP for breaking their rule a little bit there, but in all honesty, OP was trying to be accommodating and make life easier for people so they didn't have to scramble for babysitters, and then they wouldn't be judged as a bridezilla for not being reasonable, when they'd given everyone 1 full year to make accommodations for this. I'd be pissed off too if I was OP. And then further on from this disruption could have been avoided. But no. The sister actually made a point to OP and forced OP to allow the kids to be there during the ceremony. She could have left the husband in the bridal suite with the other 2 kids and with these 2 because it was their nap time. So of course they're going to be fussy. Of course they're going to be angry and start screaming and crap if they're forced to sit down. She could have left her brother-in-law to go look after these kids and with the other people that were looking after those 2 babies, but the wife insisted the kids be there there. The wife insisted the husband be there to see the ceremony. All of these problems lie within that sister. I don't know where the hell her entitlement comes from, but absolutely she ruined bits of OP's day that wouldn't have been ruined otherwise. She took advantage of OP on OP's wedding day, when OP had been so accommodating to everyone already. She chose not to try and fix the problem of her kids at a child-free wedding. She forced the kids to be there. She sucks in this situation to me. I can't blame OP entirely for blowing up like she did. So I'm saying not the a-hole. Now in the comments, CZT1991 says, she is an a-hole for bringing them and making you feel pressured when you already set up boundaries and preferences for this situation exactly. Not the a-hole. Maybe it's me, but I would have told her, sorry, if you can't find a sitter, then you or brother-in-law have to miss out. I already am anxious enough, I don't need to risk a speech disruption. Maybe then you'd have been made out to be a bridezilla too, though. It is a big deal. A deal that only happened because she made you, which she basically did. OP could have said no, but then sister and family would have probably went off about that, and she'd have more drama right before her wedding. Make an exception on your day, and it ended up interrupting your vows. She proceeds to give a pathetic attempt at an apology to save face, but seems to be vaguely gaslighting you in the process. Which is why I guess you ended up asking her to leave, because who does that on a day like that? At least fake through an apology and accept responsibility. This is why I opt for eloping. Can't win for losing. And OP replies, I originally wanted to elope, but it just never seems to happen that way. Part of the post I had to remove was that I originally told her she could bring them to the reception only, but not the ceremony. She really pleaded for them to come to both, and like an idiot, I agreed. 2 infants were also in attendance, a 10-month and a 4-month-old, my husband's cousin's kid and a friend's child respectively. But during the ceremony, cousin's wife watched the babies in the bridal suite. I was going to let my brother-in-law do the same, but my sister-in-law didn't want him to miss the ceremony. Sounds like it was more about her preferences on your day than yours, which is too bad because a lot of people seem to be calling you the a-hole, so maybe I am too, but I don't know. Sounds to me like you tried to deal with it the best you could and she didn't want to budge, which is too bad. You can always do another low-key wedding with just the 2 of you if the time ever feels right, where you don't have to worry about appeasing others or spending much. But either way, I feel you. Her comment would have been enough for me to ask her to leave as well. I hate the idea of having a wedding and someone so close like a sibling and parent pushing boundaries. It also looks a bit preferential if no other kids came and suddenly people show up and your sister's kids are there. Sure, things happen, but you know, like I said, lose, 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 and no matter what with your situation, you'd have been made out to be the bad guy for one decision or another. While I think the sister was definitely the a-hole for everything going on, the apology aspect seems to me like the least awful part of it. It was brief, as it should be. She doesn't need to take up more time, but it was appropriate. This all really should have been headed off early on. OP was fully capable of saying no. Maybe it's a lesson learned? I almost agree with her family in that she technically could have handled it more graciously, but that's a big ask to make of someone in a highly emotional situation like this. Yeah, except that the sister's excuse was, it's his nap time. Well, if it's his nap time, why was he at the wedding ceremony? OP had a place that brother-in-law and the kids could hang out during the ceremony and spend nap time. It sounds more like sister wanted to be special and show off either her kids or what an awesome mum she is. Not the a-hole. Archer9915 says, not the a-hole. Shocked at the number of you're the a-hole replies here. I don't love traditional weddings. I don't understand not inviting kids, but it's your day. You gave people a year of advance notice and you actively tried not to be a bridezilla by accommodating your sister's kids. She should never have put you in that situation. What's not to get? Weddings are way more fun when there aren't kids there. I'd say everything is, but I know that's my own biases and a lot of people enjoy doing things with kids. ShanW88 says, everyone sucks here. You knew that by agreeing, there was a possibility of the kids getting fussy at some point. Your sister shouldn't have been so dismissive because you wanted things to go well, and that's understandable. However, kicking her out of the reception after it had already happened is a pretty crappy thing to do, and I'm sure other people noticed. There was no point in adding more drama. This is a great example of a situation where Reddit will tell you that you aren't an a-hole because there is a justification for your behavior, but that doesn't translate to real life. I just can't imagine it being worth it blowing up your family and causing drama at your own wedding because you had to restart your vows, which, with an outdoor wedding, was likely anyway. It's her own fault for taking everything so seriously. If you don't want to deal with family crap like a sister who bugs you or a kid getting upset, then go elope, say your vows in a quiet room and have some ceremony with your family whenever. People act like their wedding is the event of the century, and anything less than perfection is unacceptable. I never really understood it. Just have a nice day with your spouse and the people you love and move on. Islander Rufus says, "You're the a-hole. I'm surprised so many people say otherwise. I don't think you're the a-hole for wanting a child-free wedding, but you should have told her she couldn't come. That was a mistake in hindsight. Making a big deal of it after the fact is being an a-hole. What is it with people putting this much importance on one event? There's always something that doesn't go as planned. Your marriage isn't going to succeed or fail based on waiting a minute before saying your vows. When I married my husband, I was so happy I don't think anything could have ruined it. I only have one sister, and if she had disappeared to attend to her kids, I would have playfully sought her out later and nabbed her for some pictures, even informal, to make sure that she was in some of them with me. I wouldn't have been mad. I would have been like, oh, no, sis is missing out, better grab her later for a quick picture later at least. I was sunburnt on my wedding day. Whoops. One of my sandals broke on the way down. I took them off and went barefoot. It was a beach though, lol. I genuinely hated the way my hair was done, and took some less fancy pics after taking out the pins. I remember laughing about it with my husband. I was so giddy and happy the entire time. None of it mattered, and it still doesn't. I've been at plenty of events where kids have started crying, and parents have had to take them out of the room. I've never felt mad at the parents or kids, and it honestly didn't even register. Again, not faulting you for wanting a child-free wedding. You had the option of saying no to her or letting her bring the kids. Neither option probably felt great, but that's also not her fault. Childcare arrangements falling through sucks. Life without kids can be stressful. She probably just didn't want to miss your big day. Unfortunately, life and kids don't always care about your schedule. You're the a-hole for handling it badly and not just moving on. She couldn't change what happened, and I'm not sure what kind of grandiose apology you were expecting for something happening that was out of her control. Her not crying while saying sorry, and instead saying sorry with a quick explanation and a light demeanor, doesn't make her apology insincere. Am I the a-hole for being homophobic by inviting my grandparents to my wedding? Fake names and throwaway account and whatnot. I called the account Am I the A-hole homophobic, but that was because it was an available username. I don't think I'm a homophobe. Now I, 21 male, am getting married this summer. I'm straight, my fiancée is a woman, obviously. I have two older cousins, 29 male and 26 female. Let's call them Mark and Jane, both of whom are openly gay and lesbian respectively. My grandparents, 87 male and 79 female, are unashamedly homophobic. They've attended every straight wedding in the family. They declined invitations to Mark and Jane's weddings because they don't believe that's a real marriage. Here's the problem. Homophobia aside, my grandparents are amazing, hardworking, good people. I intend to invite them to my own wedding. Jane and Mark completely oppose this, and because I'm a bit of a golden boy for the family, they want me to exclude my grandparents from my wedding to punish my grandparents and to promote marriage equality. I refuse to listen to them. Most of the family has taken my side. It's a big family, except for Jane, Mark, their in-laws, and Mark's parents. They call me a homophobe and a terrible person, or beg me not to invite my grandparents. I won't listen to them, but I feel somewhat sorry that I'm not fighting my grandparents for them. I can't help but feel like a bit of an a-hole for that. What do you think? Am I the a-hole? Edit. Thanks for the replies. I want to clarify one thing. My grandparents will be mostly respectful to Jane and Mark if they're all at the wedding. They call their spouses their boyfriend and girlfriend, and don't show that they're bothered by their relationship, unless someone straight up asks them. I should also add that they don't hate Mark. Even though they dodged his wedding, they helped pay for his college tuition and he and his husband's house mortgage. They didn't do this for Jane or Jane's straight brother, because they have conservative views on immigration and my grandparents are immigrants. For some people, what you can and can't do at your wedding and what others believe you should and shouldn't do at your wedding, that's a fine line to toe. Just like a lot of r/just no mother-in-law stories, I'm not going to listen to whatever the hell my mother-in-law wants me to do at my own wedding. She has no say in things like that, like, get away from me, mother-in-law. But I feel like this is one of those situations where it's like, maybe do listen to those around you and understand where they're coming from and why they're saying this to you. I don't get why you have to point out, I don't think I'm a homophobe. Look, I'm not homophobic, but what's the difference from saying, you know what, I don't think I'm racist? I'm not racist, but these are issues on the same level. I feel like if I meet people in real life and they say to me, oh, I'm not homophobic, but did you see that guy over there? I would take that as you being homophobic. I don't know how you don't think you're homophobic here. And you say as well, here's the problem. Homophobia aside, my grandparents are amazing people. How many people can we say, you know what, the blatant racism aside, this guy was crazy, he was so cool. These concepts don't work well together. I think you need to understand that. It's all well and good that your grandparents helped pay for their college tuition and the husband's house mortgage. Big thumbs up for that one. But they don't believe in a lot of the rights that are now being given to same-sex couples. They fundamentally disagree with the foundations of Jane and Mark's relationships. And I'm willing to bet that if they could reverse the progress made, they would do it. There's a lot of people in this world that would do that. I don't think you're actively being homophobic in this situation. I think you're enabling homophobia with your grandparents, and you are accepting their viewpoints. It's a tough one. You don't want to keep your grandparents out of your wedding, but your grandparents had no problem not going to their wedding. I'm gonna have to go with you're the a-hole for this one, OP. Now in the comments, Trains Blues says, not the a-hole at all. It's possible to be supportive of your cousins and also let that be known, and still invite your grandparents. Seriously, who the hell tosses out their grandparents? I totally get it. I've attended both types of these weddings, and they're both always fraught with conflict. The best way to change minds is not to draw a line and force people on one side of it, you know, like your grandparents do. The best thing to do is to include the people who are close to you, even when you disagree majorly with one part of their lives. Source, I'm an atheist and married a girl, also a non-believer, from a very religious family. The man who married all of her siblings and cousins refused to marry us because of this. He and his wife still got an invite to the wedding, and attended. We are all better people because we invited the a-holes to our wedding rather than turn it into a protest. Controversial not the a-hole from a bisexual woman. I was read as a lesbian for most of my childhood and teen years, and it wasn't until adulthood, after breaking up with a long-term girlfriend, I realized I was bi. Unsurprisingly, because I'm a little older than those of you who self-describe as queer, eye roll, oh my god, the passive aggression. I was bullied relentlessly by several cousins about it from long before I ever came out. They made family parties hell, and I choose not to associate with them as an adult. That said, I could never even imagine asking my other cousins not to invite those cousins to their weddings. That's just not how it works. Do I side-eye cousins who post pictures in a bar, hanging out socially with those cousins? Absolutely. But disinviting a family from a wedding is a huge deal in my culture. And honestly, I have to wonder how old most of those people calling OP the a-hole really are. Marmalade and Rice says, rather than leave a judgment, I'll give you my thoughts as a gay person. I don't have the ability to think about things through the lens of homophobia aside. All of that homophobia that others can put to the side is always front and center for us. It affects our employment, our safety, our mental health, and a lot of other areas of our lives that would otherwise be normal. But we're queer, so people can't leave well enough alone. I've had people threaten my employment because I'm gay. People didn't even know. Homophobes believe that queer people are less than. You just said they don't believe Jane's and Mark's respective marriages are real. They don't believe they are valid. They don't believe they deserve that happiness or peace of mind. Imagine if your grandparents told you they didn't approve of your marriage and would not attend the wedding. How hurt would you be? To see these people who, up until then, you had such a wonderful relationship with? What about Jane and Mark? How was it to find out that these people wouldn't attend? And is it just the wedding? Have your grandparents failed to acknowledge them elsewhere? Failed to treat them with the same respect they give everyone else? What goes on that maybe you don't see? So now you have the grandparents coming to your wedding, and you've asked Jane and Mark to suck up the reminder that Grandma and Grandpa see them as lesser by the very act of your grandparents' presence, enjoying themselves, laughing, dancing, and etc. Stuff they'd never do for Jane and Mark, who at some point were kids, I assume, who looked up to them. And even if they weren't disowned, you don't get to accept queer people only when they fit in. And by inviting them, the message you send is, I know they treated you like crap, but they don't treat me like crap, so get over it. You've established that your values are only your values insofar as the issue affects you and your own life directly. I know the grandparent situation is complicated, and I know you love them, but they have opinions about human beings tantamount to these people don't deserve rights, or their love isn't real. Do yourself a favor and read up on just what kinds of problems queer couples face without marriage rights, and try to put yourself in your cousin's shoes. Imagine that your own grandparents are the type of people to vote against your ability to see your terminal significant other in the hospital, get power of attorney, assist in other affairs, you name it. Imagine that they would vote to leave you cold, alone, and scared while your spouse is in the hospital because they find your existence and love offensive. And OP, don't downplay it, just because you have the luxury of not seeing it that way. There are wrong opinions. You can argue over pineapple on pizza all you want, but you don't get to have an opinion on whether a person's existence is valid. We are born as we are, but people like your grandparents are born into their opinions, and they can learn. You can't be friends with your friend's abusers, OP, and homophobia is abuse. Debt to Set says, you're the a-hole. Your grandparents are bigots, and that automatically disqualifies them from being amazing people. But if you're good with having bigots in your family, and showing that you support their disgusting beliefs by tolerating them, you're telling others that you agree with them, which is why they're calling you a homophobe. That's your prerogative. As a gay man, he's not the a-hole. It's his wedding, he can invite whoever he wants as long as they agree to act civil and respectful. A wedding is a day for the couple, not protests. What happens if he disinvites them and half his family doesn't come? One of the things that all LGBTQ people must accept is that there will always be bigots, and we all need to learn how to deal with them. It looks a lot better to come in and act respectful and take the moral high ground, rather than to make demands on loved ones. Let the bigots make themselves look bad. LGBTQ people don't have to accept that there will always be bigots in their family and that people will be okay with that. None of us have to accept that. Yeah, but if you want to be realistic about it, you do. How you act towards those people are up to you. I know many LGBTQ people who continue relationships with their families despite their not agreeing with their lives. I know just as many people who don't. However, those bigots won't disappear, and there will always be a small minority that hates us. A part of being gay is accepting that and learning how to deal. How you deal with it is up to you and you alone. I mean, let's not pretend that they're good people either. You don't have to, but that doesn't mean you can't still love them, and there's nothing wrong if you continue to do so or choose not to. Every LGBTQ story and experience is different, and we all learn how to deal in our own way. Well, they can and should choose to not go to OP's wedding, because to him, it's clear they are nice as long as you're fortunate enough to not be a part of the group they hate. Alright, we love some spicy stories. Our next post is by user Throw8800, titled, Am I the a-hole for smoking weed when I'm home with my kids? So, a little backstory. 2020 was a crap year for me, and in addition to dealing with the pandemic, I had to deal with some mental health struggles. As a result, I started drinking more than usual and smoking a little more weed than normal. A drink or two a day, a few tokes each evening. My spouse called me out on it earlier this year, so I stopped drinking and smoking for several weeks. I also started working on my mental health by seeing a therapist, exercising, etc., and I soon started feeling myself again. A couple days ago, I had a long day at work, like 15 hours long. It was long, but it wasn't a bad day, and I felt I got a lot accomplished. When I was done work, I decided to toke up. Now, my spouse was gone at the time, and I was home with our children, 3 kids under the age of 10. But they were all in bed, so I grabbed my one hitter, went outside, had a couple of puffs, then went back inside to watch Netflix to unwind. When my spouse came home, they found out I'd toked up, and a big argument ensued. I was accused of putting our children in danger by smoking weed when home alone with them. I was also accused of going back to using weed as a crutch, since I only did it because of my long day. I disagreed with both points, but my spouse is still upset with me, mostly because I did it when alone with our kids. So am I the a-hole for smoking weed when home with my kids? I feel like this is being approached from the wrong angle here. Much like smoking cigarettes or doing anything that your partner disagrees with, you need to set boundaries and have conversations about these things. More communication is needed in these instances to make sure that fights and arguments like this don't happen in the future. And if they do happen, everyone's transparent about what their motivations and their reasons for doing things are. OP knows in this situation that their spouse has a problem with their usage of marijuana. If you had a problem with your partner's smoking of cigarettes, usage of marijuana, addiction to social media apps, like being on TikTok for hours on end, wouldn't you be pissed off if you got home and they were doing that thing that you were disagreeing with and they had said they will stop? If I was the one walking in on that, I'd be pretty pissed off too. There's nothing inherently wrong with smoking weed. I have no problem with that, but if someone goes against what we've agreed on, I have a problem with that. In a relationship, you are a team. You're supposed to be doing what's best for both of you in that relationship. So OP, not the a-hole for smoking weed when home with the kids, but you're the a-hole for not talking about this with your spouse first and being on the same page with her. Where I may be picked apart with this one is where you say you were accused of putting your children in danger by smoking weed when home with them, and also going back to using weed as a crutch, since you only did it because of your long day. I feel like that's a red herring. If a big argument ensued, those are elements of the argument. Those are not the main points of the argument. Am I the a-hole is often guilty of leaving information out so that things favor OP the most. So I'm going to read between the lines here and say that you are throwing red herrings out there. You're trying to distract us from the actual issue. You're the a-hole. Now in the comments, RedheadFire89 says, you're the a-hole. Smoking weed when you're caring for young children? As a guy who's reading this high as hell in a country that legalized it, I will happily call you an a-hole. Not the a-hole. I think this is an issue that comes from people who don't know what only hitting a couple of times is actually like. It's a natural stress reliever, pain relief. It helps with anxiety, depression, stomach issues, bowel issues, literally a laundry list of items. You're not laid out on the bathroom floor useless. You're a little more calm and relaxed. I mean, when I take one hit, I'm floored. Everyone's tolerance and reactions are different. Same with alcohol. One shot would screw me up and I'd never drink while taking care of children. But for most people, one beer would be fine. Not the a-hole, but going forward, it may be a good idea to set ground rules. If you're not allowed to smoke or drink when the kids are asleep, it needs to be a universal rule. Drinking is way worse than smoking, but if it makes your partner uncomfortable, then it should definitely be talked about and some guidelines set for both of you. All of these people outraged that you had to smoke after they were asleep are in a different world. Many parents have to drink or similar after their kids go to bed. Definitely have a conversation with your partner, though this is more about building good communication. And Ellie Pond says, you're the a-hole. Not for the act of smoking itself, but for smoking despite the fact that you know your spouse has a problem with your usage. You need more communication about boundaries and expectations. And OP replies, thank you for this. Your point about more communications around boundaries and expectations is helpful.